up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Claudia Bellafato at the DraftKings studio in Boston. We got a great show coming up for everybody. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, all those fun places here. Fun one coming up today. Apparently, everybody in the finals decided they would rather do something else with their summer, and so now we're on the road to 2 sweeps, and we're going to have to figure out what the hell to talk about next week. So in the meantime, Claudia, what the hell else are we going to talk about today?
I mean, we could just talk about the Celtics all week.
Oh,
right?
God.
Yeah. We do have football.
Christ.
As Bill Belichick would say, we're on to Cincinnati. Bengals reporter Kelsey Conway will join the show to break down the upcoming season. Into the Gold Zone, Andrew Siciliano on the Olympics version of Red Zone. Excited to hear that one. And Trevor Lawrence's new deal, the Jags franchise quarterback, is getting paid. 5 years, $275 million, which we are going to break down a little bit later on. But first, I just want to get your quick reaction to this, Gojo, when you heard the news.
Unsurprising. We knew Trevor Lawrence was in that group of quarterbacks that were up for a payday. And, Dad, at this point, it's been pretty firmly established now, unless you are Dak Prescott, if you're a quarterback within a certain range in the NFL and you have a pulse, you are going to get paid at or near market-setting value at some point this offseason. And that seems to have become the standard right now. I can understand it given the scarcity at this position. Trevor Lawrence is a player who, Dad, I think the public perception of him is so skewed by how he came into the league and the way that we build him then. But the bottom line for our buddy Emerson Latzia and America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, is this dude gives you the best chance to win. Right now, he's only 24 years old, and there's a lot of good football, if you can keep him healthy, I think still left in a player that needs some more weapons around him to really make this thing go.
I mean, this is a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's timing. It's what the market holds. So I think anybody that's still shocked at any of these contracts, I'm not sure what to tell you, because it's the quarterback position, it's the premium position, and you're right, outside of Dak Prescott, people just kind of follow suit, because what's your alternative? What is Jacksonville going to do? You're going to start over with somebody else? It's not going to happen. So not only is this done now, but it's expected when your quarterback, is your franchise quarterback, whether they're playing great or hopefully close to it. This is the guy you're going to go into the future with. And the thing about it is your capologists on your team have all done the work already. You're all kind of foreseeing what it's going to be. You're already putting the numbers together. I guarantee you they weren't all just shocked today when the deal came about. This had been talked about. This has been kind of put in the banks of the capologist of, okay, this is the area of money it's going to start to cost us. And remember, this doesn't start cost until 2026. It's an extension. So he lives off of what he had until that extension is kicks in. So this is all part of the planning. This is what, I'm not saying this is Jacksonville, but this is what teams and better teams do. You have the foresight, you have the look on how much money you're going to have available, not only now, but maybe 3 years from now of what you're going to have from cap space. So this is just standard operating procedure right now, especially for the quarterback position. And we have to continue to say, except in Dallas.
Yeah, we'll reframe this a little bit so everyone can get an idea of just how important acting fast is in this particular marketplace. And coming up in about an hour, we'll do the thing that we always do coming off these quarterback deals. Instead of focusing on the player that just got paid, we'll focus on all the ones who haven't yet and try and psychoanalyze why their teams haven't done so here. But in the meantime, as Claudia's attire for today would suggest, there's a pretty big game coming up tonight for the Boston Celtics as they get ready to try and hang banner number 18 in TD Garden. And, Dad, this is one where coming off the game we had the other night in Game 3, where basically everyone spent time on Wednesday and Thursday taking Luka Doncic to task for what they thought was lackluster effort at the end of that game, I think even with a couple of days to sort of sober up still leads me back to the same point. I think this thing is over in a sweep right now. I think Boston, in so many ways, has come together as a team with the kind of depth and talent, certainly, but also it seems like basketball maturity, where after a couple of instances we got to make fun of them about losing in game twos in the first couple of rounds of this postseason, they figured their bleep out enough to where they recognize, hey, we don't need to mess with this anymore. Let's get back home. Let's ride that wave off Tom Brady's jersey retirement in Foxborough, and let's get ready to light up the duck boats.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen here. I'd be stunned if it wasn't a sweep. I mean, even for a team that's shooting, I think about 4 or 5% less from threes, that doesn't stop them from shooting threes. This is a team that hoists up the most threes. And it turns out, I think they're plus 20-something, 22, 25 in that area as far as threes over Dallas in this series. So, last I checked, threes are better than 2. So Dallas can score in the paint all they want. If Boston is just creaming them in the 3-point land range that much, it's not going to make much of a difference. So, yeah, I don't see this one getting any better. This is one of those two because it's an elimination game. You can get the win taken out of your sails a bit if you're the team that has 0 next to you, which is Dallas. So we'll see. Again, could be the 10th sweep. I would expect it to be the 10th sweep in NBA history, so not a ton of them. But Boston just all around the better team. And Dallas, if you want to sit there and say we'll do a postmortem after they lose this series, but what did they learn from this? Their foray into the championship series with some young players, obviously experienced players in Kyrie and Luka, but some younger players as well. And if it helps them going forward. But in all honesty, I probably see different teams in the next few years from the Western Conference. I don't know if there's going to be one team that's kind of dominating like we think Boston can do in the East and be that team. I don't know if there's a team in the West right now.
I think when it comes down to it, too, and you guys have mentioned this before, the Celtics were supposed to be here. They opened the season as the odds-on favorite. The Mavs weren't close to it, and they came into this as a 5 seed. So I think similar to the conversation we had about the Timberwolves and the Thunder, different conversation because that was a young, talented team with high upside. This is a squad in Dallas that wasn't supposed to be here, despite having some veteran presence. And it clearly just the chemistry is not working. They don't really seem to have an identity like the Celtics do. So this is not surprising. A sweep and the fact that the Celtics have only lost 2 games in the postseason is crazy to begin with. And you mentioned the threes, the name of their game, which they did, which was their identity, hitting 56% of their threes in that game 3. They've made 43 three-pointers. Basically double of what Dallas has done. That has been their bread and butter. That's the reason they're here. So if I was a Dallas fan, yes, it's disappointing, but you should be sort of happy with this result, right?
God. My God.
You should be sort of happy with the fact that you got here.
The gall of you Boston fans. See, this is why folks don't like it when you win. This is why folks can't stand y'all. Because the minute you do, you turn around and go, oh, well, you know what? You did pretty good. You should just enjoy the fact that you got here.
Gojo, who was a big supporter of Luka this whole entire season. I have supported this Dallas team, and I'm just saying it is impressive the fact that they got here because they don't have the talent. So to get to the finals and the path they got through, the Celtics, I guess my point is the Celtics were supposed to sweep this. They were supposed to sweep every series, especially with the star player not being there. There's so much Luka can do.
This is like when LeBron James used to gas up Steph Curry at the All-Star game before he was prime Steph Curry, where he was talking about he gave my point guard 3 hezzies, and then all of a sudden, I guarantee if the Dallas Mavericks had actually made this thing a series, there's no way we'd have such glowing terms spoken by our own Claudia Bellafato about this squad.
I would, yes. Come on, guys. I'm serious. We've had this conversation.
You just patted them on the head.
You did. You patted him on the head and said, "Oh, nice job, Dallas. Shouldn't have been here."
What I will say is, Claudia, you're not wrong about the overall perception of this Dallas squad. Now, what I will say is the 5th seed, I don't think belies what they did post NBA All-Star break, post trade deadline, really, where they remade a lot of the way that this team operated defensively. Their identity shifted. And like we see a lot of times, the NBA's regular season, in certain instances, can be only so emblematic of the team that we're going to see in the postseason because more veteran teams tend to understand and structure their season by saying, hey, we know we just got to get there. Being the 1 seed for certain teams really doesn't hold as much weight. That's why you saw it was largely a battle of young cores in the Western Conference that were really gunning for the 1 seed, besides the Denver Nuggets that just couldn't help it because Jokic is that good on autopilot. But you are right. This is who Boston was supposed to be, and I will say that in its own right is impressive. Like, being a wire-to-wire number 1 is impressive. Doing it with one of the guys in Kristaps Porzingis, that was a huge part in the difference. Everyone who watched the Celtics in the regular season, I know obviously the last couple of days I've seen people wondering, did the Bucks hand the Celtics the championship when they let them get Drew Holiday this offseason? But we know Kristaps Porzingis got mentioned far more than that, and I think changed the complexion of the team far more than that. And they basically played the entire postseason without him, and it still didn't matter. As Claudia's point, they only lost 2 games this entire time. So what this Boston team did is damn impressive. The road will get harder in the future because we know the Eastern Conference was littered with injured superstar players, not just from the teams Boston played, Dad, but also from the teams that they didn't play, like Milwaukee, like the 76ers and others, who I'm sure are looking at this going, yeah, bet we can re-up for next year, because that Boston Celtics style of their team is more so about the team in the way that it had been for the Denver Nuggets. I think even to an extent the way it was for the Milwaukee Bucks when they won. And this 2-man hero ball game that the Mavs want to play just does not seem to work as much in the modern NBA right now.
Yeah, listen, Boston's going to be the favorite going forward in the East, even though you're going to get some of those injured players back. And I don't know who's going to be the favorite in the West. I don't think it's going to be Dallas. So I think you have 2 differences in 2 conferences here. Boston is just a better team. Boston was supposed to be here, and we weren't sure who was coming. I mean, how many times during the playoffs did we hype up Minnesota or Oklahoma City or early on Denver? You know, we kept hyping up different teams. Here in the East, it was always Boston. And then it was like, oh, okay, and now the star player from the other team is hurt, so making the road even easier. But that should not asterisk this team at all. You know, this was the best team, and they're showing it right now. One thing I will say, secretly, they would never say it publicly, those that are hoping for a Dallas loss, the Dallas Maverick players who have families, they are ready to be done. They are not ready for their guys to go back to Boston and prolong this thing another game. They're ready to start whatever vacation they're going to start or whatever they're going to do next right now and not prolong this thing a couple of days, because there's the inevitability of it, they're not going to come back and win this thing. So I'm sure the families are like, okay, let's just, let's play hard, guys. Let's play hard. Let's play competitive. But darn, we lost. Let's start our off season.
Just pat them on the head. Tell them they did a real good job.
Yes, pat them on the head. Right.
Exactly. But no, they are built for multiple seasons. Now, Claudia, you did bring up this Dallas Mavericks team. How do you think they slot into this upcoming season based on some of the changes we saw them made? Is this a team that maybe had their best chance go by here, or can it get better for them?
I'm actually trying to, because we do have the odds up at the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. The Celtics are the favorite at plus 280, so good plus money. I can't even find them, which means they're not very high up on the board. I think it's a tough situation because you brought in Kyrie. You talked about the pickups that they got after the All-Star break, which did seem to work. I think for me, the thing is it's just chemistry and it's defense. And you spoke on this highly of Luka yesterday. Not highly, but you spoke on it a lot about the fact that Luka's shouldering all the offensive weight, so he shouldn't have to hold them up when it comes to defense, which I do agree with. And I found Dallas. They're 9-1, so 2-4. They have the six shortest odds. So clearly the market's sort of seeing them that way too, I think, in the way that I said. Like, they have the right pieces. They don't seem to really have it meshing or good chemistry or identity yet. And I don't know if that means you have to move around pieces or maybe you just need another year together. And I'm curious what you guys think on that. I do want to get to this because this is one spot I think you can find some value if you like Dallas tonight. Instead of betting them on the money line, you can get them at plus 175. This is going to lead us to a quick little segment called Cash It or Trash It. Stay tuned to hear everything DraftKings has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problems, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. So this is the exact final outcome we're going to be talking about. A sweep is minus 110, which is the price for this money line. So if you like Dallas, you could do that. But why would you do that when Senior just said you're delaying the inevitability that the fact that the Celtics are going to win this? So instead of betting Dallas to win this one game at minus 110, risking 110 to win 100. Bet plus 175 for the 4-1 series finish. So the Celtics are going to win this in a gentleman's sweep. Dallas gets one tonight, but the Celtics go home and win it. That's plus 175. Put down 100 to win 175, 275 payoff. If you are looking for some value and you do think there's some hope and some of that chemistry seems to bud and Kyrie does step up, that's the way to bet this. You could go crazy at plus 1 over 1,000 if the Mavs can push it to 6. I don't think that's going to happen. Don't think that's going to happen. So to answer your question, I think maybe they have the right pieces. They just need to sort of form an identity and get a rhythm going in the offseason. And if you have any faith in a glimpse of that tonight, plus 175 for the gentleman's sweep. Either of you, like any tingle in your brain to want? No. No.
I'm off the narcotic, man. I have to stop doing this to myself.
Yeah.
I get it. That's good.
I get it. That's the money bet. I understand that, but while I know I can win more for my $100, I'm still probably going to give my $100 away because I don't see them. I don't see them winning in this one. So, hey, Claudia, quickly go back to that screen of favorites for next year. You mentioned Dallas was 6 and Boston was 1. Were the other obviously 6? So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Were those all Western Conference teams?
Yep.
You know,
you have the Bucks. You have the Bucks before the Mavs, but it's Nuggets, Thunder, T-Wolves, and then Bucks, Mavs. Yeah.
All right, so there's 4 Western and there's 2 Eastern. Okay, all right.
And I think that's the biggest predicament for Dallas going forward is not necessarily that they're a bad team, but that so many of the teams behind them, Denver, I think still largely viewed as an incredibly talented core of that roster, even if we saw some flaws show up in a series that was very matchup specific against Minnesota, a team that was essentially built to beat the Denver Nuggets. But for Minnesota and for Oklahoma City, I think especially now, Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota, interesting factor in what I'm about to say, but for both of those other teams, I think there's an idea and an understanding, Dad, that they're just getting started. Like those teams, all the conversation was, hey, they just need that one postseason to go get that experience, and then they're going to come back next year and maybe look closer to the Celtics model than they are what we're getting out of Dallas right now.
And we could say that about 3 teams, right? I mean, Denver already won it, so we're not going to say that about them. But Dallas is getting valuable postseason experience, especially in the finals. Minnesota as well, and Oklahoma City, right? They're a young team led by a young superstar, so they're getting that as well. So I think it's kind of like the reverse of the NFL, where we talked about the depth in the AFC and not as much depth in the NFC. I think that's reversed here. You have the depth in the Western Conference in the NBA and not as much depth. You go Boston and Milwaukee, and then you're trying to find some slots on who's healthy or not. But the depth, like I said, I would be much more comfortable in saying Boston's going to be, making a run here than picking any team in the West to at least, be that dominant team for the next couple of years. We all want to think Denver because of Joker and what he can do. But they got shown this year that it's not happening, or didn't happen this year. So, and there are other teams on the rise. So I agree. I think the experience Minnesota, OKC, and Dallas got will be invaluable going into next year.
Yeah, I do think that's the one thing. Like we don't need to index too far in the Luka conversation from the other night. Yes, his response to the adversity in that game wasn't great. Didn't help his team out. I fully expect a different version of Luka coming out tonight in the way that he carries himself. He's also an incredible player, and because of that, we forget 25 years old. Like been a pro since he was a teenager, 25 years old. And we talked about that all the time with Boston's young core and gave it a little bit and looked what happened. And we know most NBA players, it's 27, 28, 29 is when you kind of hit the prime, Claudia.
And he's also human, but can we talk about the fact that LeBron James literally jumps 7 feet up in the air and acts like he's a 4-year-old kid who didn't get candy when he doesn't get a call? So, come on, let's lay off Luka a little bit. And I know that I was one of the people saying he shouldn't react like that and it doesn't help the team. And, of course, fouling out the way he did with that. None of that I'm backing up, but I am saying for everyone to give him so much crap after he got his team here. Like, that has to be frustrating. He has to be exhausted. And if LeBron can whine to the refs, so can Luka.
But they're not mutually exclusive, Claudia.
Sure.
You can say, as we said, he's led the team here, but he complains too much, and he doesn't play defense well enough, and it's hurting the team. And we're talking about Luka now because he's playing. We've said that about LeBron in the past. LeBron has been a guy who whines all the time. I get it. But right now it's Luka. He's a great player who needs to cut out the antics.
Fair.
Yeah, that's what stars do.
Ha!
Here on Gojo and Golic, and DraftKings Network is once again your ultimate host for PBC boxing action, including 3 great prelim fights from the undercard of Saturday's action, headlined by Tank Davis versus Frank Martin, David Benavidez versus Alexander Gvozdyk. The fights kick off Saturday, 5:30 Eastern on DraftKings Network. From one pending sweep to another on the ice. Last night, the Panthers took a 3-0 lead. This one much closer, 4-3 win, 2 goals in the third by the Oilers. Alexander Barkov did play, good thing, set up a goal, scored another. Some huge saves by Sergei Bobrovsky, not surprising. And the defense keeping Connor McDavid without a goal yet again. But he did have 2 assists. Here was him after the game.
We're trying to figure them out. Obviously, we haven't beat them in 3 games, and we've had stretches of good, we've had stretches of bad. Yeah, we're trying to figure them out.
Little bit of a different vibe than after game 2, where he said, I'm excited for us to dig out of this hole. I'm excited for everyone to be doubting us. Down 0-3 is tough. Only one time this has happened in the finals for somebody to come back. That was 1942, and they were not facing this Florida Panthers squad, Senior.
Yeah, it was the Maple Leafs beat Detroit 1942. There have been 20 sweeps in the NHL, and looking for 21 right here. Listen, I mean, when you're and Florida's showing they're the better team. So what's one thing you can't do when you're not the better team? turn the ball over. In this case, turn the puck over.
Yeah.
Too many turnovers for Edmonton, giving Florida too many chances. So, and here go again, you go into the third, it's 4-1. You're thinking, my God, okay. But Edmonton did make it interesting. Though I tell you what, they are doing it to Connor McDavid. 11 shots, I think it's been 11 shots in the last 2 games. Hasn't scored one time in this one. At this point, is it Barkov or Bobrovsky is going to be the Conn Smythe?
I know.
I would probably lean to Bobrovsky, but I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a voter. But that's kind of what we're looking at now, right? Is who's going to be the Conn Smythe? Are they going to sweep, and who's going to be the Conn Smythe? And I would see them sweeping as well. They're just playing better right now. Edmonton gets some runs going occasionally as they're looking for their first Stanley Cup. But like I said, too many turnovers.
Yeah, and Gojo, to your dad's point, Bobrovsky is the overwhelming favorite for Conn Smythe, that minus 500, Barkov at 4-1. Either way, can we just give this trophy to the whole team, though? Because the Panthers clearly the better team here.
It is amazing watching in both the finals that we have going on right now in NHL and NBA how similar the winning teams are, right? Mm-hmm. Like just these overwhelming forces where the sum of the parts is, or the whole is greater than the sum of their parts in a lot of ways that leads us to make statements like that, where it's been so difficult to find a finals MVP in the Celtics series or an MVP for that team in general over the course of the year. And it's given us, call it what it is, 2 of the more boring finals that we've seen in quite some time between both sports, where they're both likely going to be sweeps. They've both, I get the score has indicated it, but watching that game last night, it's not like it was competitive for large swaths of that game. Florida's overwhelmed them. The forechecking's been insane. They came into this series lauded for the defense, and buddy, it showed up big time. And it's been the same story for both teams, is every once in a while you'd see glimmers from other teams in the Oilers and certainly in the Dallas Mavericks, led by incredible individual stars that were just swallowed whole by more complete rosters who had the benefit of recent championship losing experience. So it's an unbelievably uncanny game script for both of them that, I think is ultimately going to lead to a sweep in both of these. And for our friends over at the Dan Le Batard Show, man, a victory lap for the ages. I did not think Greg Cody was going to survive the McOverrated Connor McDavid article from before this series. But man, oh man, they get to print the shirts down there and get ready to go for that, Claudia.
I didn't realize that was a thing. So
You missed that. Yeah, Greg Cody wrote a column before the series and doubled down on it, I believe, on the Big Show, calling Connor McDavid overrated going into the series. Apparently, that word had gotten to Connor McDavid himself, and now Greg Cody gets to sit there and kick his feet up. Well, again, I just want to make it very clear, and I think I can speak for the show. None of us here believe Connor McDavid's overrated. That guy is, listen, I am not a monster hockey fan by any means. Claudia can probably add more context to this because she follows the sport much more closely. But even as a casual fan, I've always said that guy pops something different. Like there is just, you don't have to know much about the game to watch that dude and understand, hey, that's not like, he is not like the rest of them out there on the ice. That being said, you can't just win with that alone. So I'm not all that surprised the series went this way.
The way I was thinking of this when I was watching him last night, he doesn't even look like he's on skates. It looks like everyone else is on skates when he's managing that puck, and he's just like on feet, in sneakers. So I have to read this article. Good timing, man. Really good timing, okay? When you're going up against the best defense and best goaltender in hockey, it's going to be easy to say McDavid is overrated. Please, let's look at his stats over the last few years. But it's just a tough spot for the Oilers. Like I said, heading into this too, it's not just McDavid. They had a ton of talent on the offensive side. 4 of the top 5-point leaders in the NHL in this postseason heading into this series. But defense wins championships. Go, Joe.
And and did you guys know, as this is steadily becoming the fact, did you know that Jason Tatum and Matthew Tkachuk went to middle school together and did a project together? The new Matthew Stafford and Clayton Kershaw just dropped. Wait, Dad, you actually didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah, the videos, they look the same. They literally look the same.
Oh, my God.
They do. They
we gotta get that
like
up.
Eerily similar here. We don't have it right now, but I'll show you, Dad. Oh, I thought that had become pretty ubiquitous over the course of this playoff lead up. I've seen that video of a class project they did like 20 times now in the lead up to both of these championship efforts for the two of them. So you can go check that out, Dad. Yesterday, speaking of our friends at the Le Batard Show, though, by the way, Danny Hurley made the media rounds yesterday, including on the Dan Le Batard Show, the current now UConn Huskies men's basketball head coach. And I thought this was interesting hearing him talk about the idea that this was a leverage play situation, the idea that he had used the Lakers to go and secure something at UConn. I thought he was pretty candid about this. Take a listen.
Like, one of the worst takes I've ever heard is like, this was a leverage play by me to improve my situation at UConn. Like, I don't need leverage here. We've won back-to-back national championships, at this place. And I'm not, this was never a leverage situation for me. I've had a contract in place here, for a couple of weeks, and the financial part in terms of salary has been done for a while. There's some other parts like NIL and staff salaries and some different things that I needed, that I want adjusted, that I'm not comfortable with. But the sense or the idea that this was some conspiracy to get me a sweeter deal at UConn is just, it's lazy.
I mean, those other things are important, and the idea that there was any leverage to be had there to gain ground in NIL and coaching pool, Dad, is not all that far-fetched. But Danny Hurley is one of the rare coaches where I do sort of feel comfortable with taking his word on the version of events, just because he seems wholly incapable of deceit. Like, he wears his heart on his sleeve so much that it does seem like a guy who maybe was just interested. And maybe, like they said on the show at the beginning, his wife was crying at the thought of going to Los Angeles before they went out there and actually were boots on the ground visiting. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd heard that soundbite, and a lot of people commenting on, who makes the decisions in the family. It's ridiculous talk. The bottom line is there are family dynamics. And I talk about this all the time, that come into play when there's a chance to go somewhere, when you have a choice. A lot of things come into play. And if for whatever reason they like that neck of the woods better, then so be it. So what? I mean, we everybody can sit there and complain. How can you turn down the Lakers and the NBA and that money, even though that wasn't a massive offer like we thought it was going to be? People have their reasons. So he has his reasons, whatever they are, and who knows what he's spouting off is the truth or not, but this is what he says, so you want to take him at his word. But like I said, there's a reason they're there, whether it's his wife, whether it's the comfort of UConn, whether it's where he wants to be, whether he likes college now still more than the NBA, whether he doesn't think he's ready for the NBA. I don't know the answer to that. But their decision was to stay at UConn, so I respect that. I got no problem with it at all.
Also, we see what happens when you pick sport over your wife. Tom Brady, just saying.
Wow.
Oh. Wait, didn't she cheat on him?
People are acting like, whatever, yeah. Conversation for a different time.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we'll see if Caron Butler breathed a sigh of relief with all this news yesterday. Next on Gojo and Golic. Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Claudia Bellafato. Excited to talk a little bit of hoops with our next guest, NBA champion, current Miami Heat assistant, and former UConn great Caron Butler, kind enough to join us now on behalf of JP Morgan Chase Second Chance Initiative. And you're going to hear him talking a lot about that coming up here, Caron. We're excited to hear about that. But first and foremost, good morning. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Good morning to you guys as well, and thanks for having me on the show.
No, definitely. We appreciate you being here. And we were just talking about your alma mater here in the last second. So I'm always curious. My dad and I are both Notre Dame alums, obviously always rooting for the home team. How big a sigh of relief did you breathe seeing the Danny Hurley news that he chose to stave off Los Angeles and come back to Storrs, Connecticut?
Look, I wasn't surprised. I know that it was a very intriguing opportunity to go to, Laker Nation. But I just look at the momentum and everything that he's been able to accomplish and build in Storrs. And I just think that from a power standpoint, this is his baby. And you don't want to leave in the midst or in the middle of your greatness of what you've been able to get that momentum going for. So I'm happy that he decided to stay. And, I agree. I think I heard the sound bite. I agree that, it was a husband and wife decision, and his wife probably just wasn't having it right now at this time. And I just think it was the best decision for him and the family. And I'm just happy that Husky Nation get to enjoy him for many more years.
While he may not have the leverage he had this year to get into the NBA down the road, do you think eventually he becomes an NBA coach?
If he wants. The opportunity was there for him to take a head coach job for the Los Angeles Lakers. If they fly you in and they have that conversation and the offer sheet is on the table, then the offer was his to take, and he decided to stay in Storrs, which I think was a great decision, a great business decision, a great power decision. And, going forward, he's going to have his pick of the litter. If he wants to transition into the NBA space, by all means, he'll be able to do so.
He's mentioned his style of coaching as something that he feels like would need work making that jump. As someone that's both played in and coached at the NBA level, how different does that dynamic have to be dealing with the grown men in that league versus the way he can coach in college?
Man, I think in anything, it's all about adjustments, and he's a master adjuster. I've seen him run, the motion offense where, it's equal opportunity. The ball moves side to side, pass-oriented, cuts, paint touches, and doing all those different things. I've seen him work out at the post where it's a 1,000, 2 1,000 count and the ball is moving. It's just about adjustments. If it rains outside, you get an umbrella. If it's a little bit too cold, you put on a winter jacket or earbuds, whatever the case may be. And I think that Dan Hurley is, he has a wild range in his toolbox where he can adjust to any situation. Just like he adjusted not to take the job and stay in the better situation in Storrs.
There we go.
So speaking of adjustments, do the Mavericks have an umbrella, winter coat, galoshes, gloves, a winter hat? What do they need to do to even try and get back in this series, or is there nothing?
Honestly speaking, I was at Game 3, and I was just really taken back because they started the game with a great deal of momentum. I felt like they was featuring Kyrie early, and he had the momentum in his favor as being the number one guy to, just get them started and get the offensive flow of things moving. But they have to continue to move the ball. I think Jason Kidd's going to probably make some more adjustments. They're going to have to take care of the basketball and just, on the opposing end, defending. They have to get more deflections. They have to protect the paint. They have to get the loose balls. They have to be first off the ground. And if they do that, they live to fight another day. But, it is a huge mountain to overcome, 3-0 deficit, but, it could be done. You could push it to 7, but I don't think the odds are in their favor.
Luka Doncic has obviously taken a ton of criticism for his Game 3 performance, fouling out with 4 minutes left. How much of that do you think is actually warranted the way that people are going at him?
Look, we're in a game and in a society where everything is just, criticism is a real thing, and sometimes it's warranted. And in this situation, I just think that from a defensive standpoint, he probably know he can be a little better. And I know that he will probably try to be a little bit better. And the reason that he had fouled out in this game is because I think he was trying to be better defensively. Look, his gift is to make plays, to score the basketball, to be elite on the offensive end of the floor, to carry the weight and the burden of that franchise. And he's done it extremely well. This is why we're watching him in the finals on the biggest stage. There's only 2 teams standing, and he is led by Luka. But at the same time, some of your flaws get displayed. And this is going to be a learning experience. And the reason because he's a great player, and the reason because he is an actual talent of this generation is because he always takes the down moments and he turned them into positive. So whatever happens from this finals experience, he's going to be better from it.
Forgetting even this series, because we all think it's going to be over. It's just a matter of how many games. Going into next year, you're with the assistant with Miami right now, so you have Boston in your conference. What does it take to knock off a team like Boston? They have the 2 stars, and they're so well-rounded everywhere else.
I mean, you have to have as few errors as possible. I think before even mentioning that, you have to be healthy. And you have to be able to play with pace and space. You have to be able to defend at a premium. You have to be able to do multiple things from a defensive standpoint, protecting the paint and closing out. And you have to understand that their strength are in their numbers. They have so many guys that's battle tested, from Drew Holiday. I mean, adding him to that team, it gives them a whole different makeup. A 2-way guy that can hit shots from the perimeter, that plays a lot on the baseline in the dunker spot. People don't realize that they use him as a screener. So when Porzingis went out, he's still in a lot of the triggers. So he's coming up, he's setting picks, and now he's the ultimate playmaker because he's rolling, he's popping. They throw it to him in the pocket, he spray. He's finding open guys on the perimeter, and they're all in sync. So it was a seamless transition for him. And I'm just happy to see Al Horford. You talk about a guy that giving up his starting spot as the 5 position, and he's back in the starting spot. He's coming off the bench, and now Porzingis goes down, he goes back. It's just like whatever it takes, they bought into that. And, Jason Tatum and Brown, whatever narrative that was around those guys, and people try to make Tatum like, all right, you're not the number 1 guy. Look, it's all about winning. And when you win, everything get quiet, the noise get extremely quiet, and you get to hoist up that trophy. So it's just amazing to see them buy into that. So you have to almost play a perfect game to beat them at this point.
It really is an impressive team, and they're on the cusp of lifting that trophy the way that you once did. So very exciting for them and a lot of their parts there. Kuran, I know you're here with us, and we got about a minute left. On behalf of JP Morgan Chase and the Second Chance Initiative, what can you tell us about what you got going on with them?
Yeah, just for years, we try to create an opportunity in the space for people that, out of every 3 Americans have a criminal record. And we just try to make sure that the Clean Slate Initiative, when you're back entered into society, if you have any checks, felonies on your record, that you're not being held hostage to, your criminal past. You get a clean slate, you get a second chance opportunity to, just provide for your family. And I think everybody is or should be granted that. And I've been a strong advocate for that. JP Morgan and Chase, we partner up with this initiative. We're on a lot of platforms talking about it, including this amazing one. And we just want people to rally around it. So any entrepreneurs, any business owners, don't turn a black eye to people that have had a checkered past. I'm one that had a checkered past, and I was given a second chance opportunity. And I'm waking up to the morning talking to you guys and just doing this job and using my platform to inspire and move the needle.
No, absolutely couldn't have said it better. It's an incredible cause and a great one. We're glad we had the chance to talk to you about. So, Caron, can't thank you enough for your time and insight this morning. Thanks so much. I hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon, all right?
Have a blessed day. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. All right, from one former champion to a team full of hopeful champions here. We'll check in coming off minicamp with the Cincinnati Bengals. Who's going to play wide receiver there? What's the secondary look like? And Joe Burrow concerned with his mortality? Kelsey Conway joins us next to talk it all.
Bengals wrapped up mini camp officially, as you can see. They tweeted out last practice for a while with a crying emoji. Now, there's still a lot of questions that remain, including how is Joe Burrow going to look bouncing back from that injury that kept him out of the second half of last season, and also this wide receiver room, some money issues. The guys are standing by with somebody who can break it all down for us.
Yeah, very excited. Kelsey Conway, Bengals beat reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer, kind enough to give us some time today. And Kelsey, good morning. It is a shame that you guys never have anything interesting going on in Bengals camp to keep you busy. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, we appreciate your time. And why don't we start at the head of the snake and work down as we sort through all of the Bengals offseason priorities. Joe Burrow coming back off the wrist injury from last year. We know he's been pretty limited throughout most of the offseason program, and we heard him talk about his football mortality the other day. But where is Joe in the recovery process, and how are the Bengals feeling about their star QB heading into this year?
So I was just putting together my 5 things we learned from Bengals mini camp. And of course, it started with an update on Joe. And I thought that having covered every single one of Joe Burrow's press conferences since 2021, that was the most honest and real he's ever been in terms of just being very forthcoming about where he's at with his injury. And he wasn't overly positive, trying to say he's somewhere that he wishes he was in terms of it. I think he was really real. And I think what we've learned in this process of watching him since he's been back in early May is that he said he feels great. And there's been days where you watch him throw and he looks like the same old Joe. But then there's also been some days where you walk away saying, he wasn't really throwing the ball that hard today, but it's all by design. And I think the biggest takeaway right now with where the Bengals are with Joe Burrow is that they've learned from the mistakes in him wanting to be perfect every single time he's on the field. And that's not to say he's not a perfectionist anymore and doesn't, overly obsessive about his craft, is he's learning the importance of if he might have to take a little bit of a rest day, or if he can't push it to 100% every single day, that's okay, because they just need to get him to week 1 where he can be 100% then.
This is a team that a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, we thought, wow, what a window they have with Burrow and Chase and T. Higgins, and the defense are trying to build there. And now, a couple of years later, you have Joe missing major time with major injuries. You have wide receiver issues, and you have your quarterback talking about the mortality of football, which no fan wants to hear. They just want to hear how great you feel and want to play all the time. So is there a little bit of trepidation among Cincinnati Bengals fans about, can we get it done with this group?
I think that's the biggest question, because like you're talking about, that 2021 season, what made it so fun for them is they weren't expecting it. And they had low expectations going into that year. And like you said, the expectations have just ballooned up to it, and they haven't been able to reach those. I think that what most Bengals fans think is that when the group's back together and when Joe is fully healthy, there's no excuse, which we haven't been able to see, because he hasn't had a fully healthy training camp since then. I mean, after the Super Bowl, the day before we all reported to training camp practice, we get an emergency, email that he's having appendectomy. He's having an emergency appendectomy because, he reported and his stomach was hurting. And then, he missed all of that time. So they got off to a slow start. And then last year, obviously, you guys know what happened with the calf. But I think that
Nope, I think we've lost Kelsey there for a second there. Hopefully we can get her back, as the internet having some issues there. But Dad, that does underscore, I think, the chief concern for this team. She's absolutely right. And we talk about this usually with young quarterbacks going into their second offseason. These guys coming in as rookies don't have a real offseason to work on football. Then you get that second offseason where they could finally dial that back in some. For Joe Burrow, when you have to spend so many off seasons rehabbing in this case, or training camps in the training room doing that. There's the statement for the back end of the roster, guys, you can't make the club in the tub. But for Joe Burrow, you are losing out on valuable reps to let you get off to a good start at the beginning of the season. He's essentially had to play himself in shape once he gets to the regular season each year. For even a player that good, that presents a big challenge.
Yeah, for those that don't remember, it was a knee his rookie year. Then he's rehabbing that in the offseason. Then we talk about the appendectomy before training camp, and then the wrist last year that he's rehabbing during this offseason. So that does make it difficult, which again, Mike, leads me to wonder where the window is. I believe you're going to sign Jamar Chase. Is this the last year of T. Higgins? Because he's going to play on the franchise tag. Mixon's gone. They bring in Zach Moss from the Colts. So where is this team? Where is this offense right now? Where's the expectation now is high, and are they considered second as far as prognostication in the North? Is it behind Baltimore, or is it behind Baltimore and Cleveland right now? Because the expectation was so high when sitting there watching that Super Bowl, watching them lose on the last play of the game because of Aaron Donald blowing things up on them, and they thought, well, okay, they got here, man, we'll be back, look at the power that we have, and it's been since. So it's like, where is their window right now?
I think we have Kelsey back here. Kelsey, you with us? Oh, no, I don't think so. All right. Unfortunately, it looks like we lost Kelsey here, but we really appreciate her time this morning and some of the updates coming out of Bengals camp here. Dad, you mentioned their view going into next year. I think they absolutely should be second in the North behind the Baltimore Ravens. I think Cleveland, especially with some of the concerns at quarterback still about what Deshaun Watson can be. And listen, injuries up front, the loss of Bill Callahan as your offensive line coach. There are plenty of legitimate football reasons to have wonders about what that team's ceiling might look like. And for the Bengals, I think the one thing as far as consistency that we underrate for them, Lou Anarumo sticking around on defense has been the coordinator that we've talked about over and over again. Do we have Kelsey here for one more minute?
I'm back. Sorry for whatever reason, my audio cut out.
No, all good, Kelsey. We've only got about a minute and a half left here, I'd say, but I think the other big storyline we'd love to hit on with you is this wide receiver situation. Yeah. Jamar Chase showed up for minicamp to avoid fines, but they're still working on a deal. How close do you believe they are at this point to signing him to a deal like we saw for his LSU teammate, Justin Jefferson?
Not close. I think that it's going to be a bit before that deal gets done. He came and like you said, avoided the fine, but he didn't participate in any of the mini camp. And I think that knowing kind of the contract, I think year or likelihood of.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we lost Kelsey's audio again here. The technological fates were not kind to us today. But, Dad, that is interesting to hear. Not close on that deal still for a market that seems pretty clear now. Although Justin Jefferson, massive gulf, as we talked about, between him and then A.J. Brown and the rest of the receiver market. So it does present an interesting challenge. Again, I can't underscore this enough. Bengals, cheap franchise, seeing that price tag come out and knowing Jamar Chase, I'm sure has been talking to his former Tiger brother about a lot of this, has to be a bit concerning for them.
Yeah, I think no doubt about that. So what happens? Do we see Jamar Chase holding out? That's the other thing. We wait and see. If he doesn't get that deal, does he hold out? And if he does hold out, I rarely expect anybody to miss an entire season. But if you start to hold out, you start to worry about injuries back, and then if it doesn't get worked out, he's disgruntled. T. Higgins, no player likes to live off the franchise tag right now. Is this going to be T's last year with the team, or what kind of deal would he get after this? So there is some concern there in an area, Mike, that we talked about when you started talking about duos of wide receivers. You talked about this team right near the top, and that might be getting a little bit shaky now.
Yeah, and it's not quite like because of the injuries to Joe Burrow, and just physically he's different than organizations like the Bills and the Chiefs that have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who have been able to largely go now and shift away from having a true number one wide receiver. Very different times for the Bengals on deck. We'll be back with more after this. It's Gojo and Golic.
Trevor Lawrence, set to be a very rich man, as we talked about a bit off the top, and now we're going to dig into this contract. That is 5 years, $275 million, $200 guaranteed, $142 at signing, 37.5 signing bonus. What else can you add on there? Bottom line, yes, he is making money. And some of us here at DraftKings Network are fans. And by some of us, I mean Emerson Lazio, who tweeted this. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Hashtag Duval. So I'm not as excited as he is. Excited for Trevor Lawrence. And like you said off the top, Gojo, not surprising, or Senior, one of you said it. When you're a good quarterback in this market, you're going to get money like this.
Yeah, it's become really I don't want to say totally uncomplicated because all these deals take time. Yeah. And as we say, the devil is usually in those details. But I don't know, Dad. It seems like we've arrived at a point where this is just sort of what you do because quarterback scarcity is so real in this league, and because a lot of the teams that we've talked about when it's come to these quarterback extensions, whether it is Jacksonville, Miami coming up right now, it's what makes Dallas so complicated is these are teams that believe they are playoff contenders. This Jacksonville team in particular was 2 years ago. We know we had that incredibly unlikely comeback win against the Chargers in the wild card round of the postseason for them. But looking at the AFC South now, they believe that they have a team that can go out here and contend with the Houston Texans as the Colts are on their way up right now. And so while you're in the midst of that, when you've been in a position to go out and get a guy who's a former number 1 overall pick and has that sort of talent that Trevor Lawrence has, it just feels pretty daunting. Honestly, Dad, it's like getting a divorce and thinking about going back into the dating pool. No one really wants to have to take the dive back into that. And if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, do you really want to have to go back there and swim around in the quarterback waters in the open market? No, you got a pretty good thing going. And so you pay the going rate for that, and you pay it early so that it ages well fast, the way we've already seen for contracts like Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and certainly Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, you pay it so you know what you have for the rest of the team because you know they're going to take up more of the cap. Listen, paying this amount is not fun, I don't think, for anybody. But what it comes down to is when you pay it, how good do you feel about it, right? When you pay a Patrick Mahomes, you're feeling just fine about it, correct? Because you know what he brings. You know, for a Trevor Lawrence, remember, this is a guy in his first 3 years had 60 turnovers. He had 21 last year, I think 14 interceptions, 7 fumbles. So I like him as a quarterback. They finished 9-8. We saw what happened the year before. And going to the playoffs and getting dumped. I thought they won that game. Well, I all of a sudden I got confused.
They won 2 years ago. They didn't make the postseason last year.
They won 2 years ago, right, against the Chargers when the Chargers had that lead. That's right. But he's a guy that you believe in. But again, you know you got to pay that money. You know what else, just what you said, what are the quarterback waters you're going to swim in out there. So this is the cost of doing business. And there's a line of quarterbacks that are ready to do that the teams know that that's going to happen. And you're right. You're pretty much know the parameters of where you're going to go and how it's going to be broken down. It's getting easier and easier as each deal gets done. It's just a matter of where you think where that quarterback and his agent think he slots in and where the team thinks he slots in.
Yeah. Now, and you can look at this a couple of different ways. Like the agents are always trying to angle to make sure that their quarterback is the highest paid blank. And in this case, he ties Joe Burrow for the highest average annual salary at $55 million a year. But I went and looked at this last night, Dad, on Spot Track. And in terms of the average percentage of the salary cap at signing, Trevor Lawrence, as of the inking of this deal, was 10th in the NFL already. So we talk about how well these quarterback contracts age. Doesn't make it any easier to write the check and doesn't make what has to happen on the other side of it any less daunting. Like, you do need success. But in so many of these cases, I mean, you look down on the list now, Dad, Trevor Lawrence's contract makes him one of 9 quarterbacks now with $100+ million fully guaranteed in their deal. Josh Allen, dead last on that list with exactly $100 million guaranteed. Josh Allen's 24 years old, and he's the exception because I think talent and production-wise, he is one of the true outliers in the league. He's one of the quarterbacks along with Patrick Mahomes, along with a guy like Lamar Jackson, and I think even to an extent a guy like Joe Burrow, despite the injury, that you feel a lot more comfortable with. Like looking at, again, Trevor Lawrence, one of 6 quarterbacks with an average annual salary over $50 million now. When I read you the names on this list, Dad, tell me which one of these things seems not like the other among Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts, right? Like who among those names do you feel best about paying over $50 million a year?
Oh, listen, I get what you're saying. I mean, you look at a guy like Kyler Murray, right? I didn't think Kyler Murray was going to get a deal that he got, and then we thought he was going to be gone last year. So yeah, I mean, this happened. You know, what caught my eye about when you were talking about that, whose name isn't on there? You know, a big time name that's not on the quarterback with $100 million guaranteed.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes' deal was so insanely team friendly when it was signed. And because they knew he was going to be there, like that's the thing with the quarterback market. When you know you need to go. And in the case of Patrick Mahomes, you can't even, it's not even worth talking about him in the same terms as everybody else because they knew so early and between the ability and production, like to have both of those line up. And that was kind of the difference I was underscoring, Dad, with the names of the quarterbacks above 50 million. Like, yes, Joe Burrow, insanely talented and helped take them to a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts got them to a Super Bowl. Justin Herbert, insanely talented, but Lamar Jackson has outpaced those guys in terms of, hey, you've got 2 MVPs for a guy his age that has been that productive for the Baltimore Ravens, and so you feel insanely comfortable. And I would say Joe Burrow probably in that same way. With the talent, ability, and postseason accomplishment, you feel insanely comfortable. But Mahomes is just on such another level that you essentially get to move money around like you're laundering it if you're the Kansas City Chiefs while you've got him under contract. For everybody else, the deal is a little bit more difficult. And so you're hoping that, hey, we get a guy that's got talent like Trevor Lawrence. Hey, he came in and got billed as a generational quarterback prospect. And maybe production-wise, he's never going to be that. But talent-wise, he's at the place that at least gives you a chance. I always say in football, and in really anything, you're paying for proximity to the prize. Do I have someone that can get me close enough, often enough to where maybe if things go right, we can get there? Because the Mahomes-led Chiefs are an unrealistic standard for everybody.
Oh, I completely agree because I agree about the proximity, you know, and then it's can that guy get us over the top? Can Trevor Lawrence do that? You know, can the other guys, can Joe Burrow do that? Can Justin Herbert, if they get in position, do that? Can Jalen Hurts do that? Jalen Hurts, he had a heck of a Super Bowl, you know, when they lost that game. Josh Allen, they're still waiting for him to get that final piece, to make that final move. So that's what the pay is for, right? You know, you're paying the standard quarterback price, and there's another list of guys that are going to be in that. But what you hope to get in return is that when you need it the most, this guy will be the one that carries you. He is the bulk of the cap. He is the bulk of the money. So you hope in crunch time hits, he is the guy you can trust with the game on his shoulders.
Yeah, and I think there's only a handful of quarterbacks that really fall into, like, I call them the nuclear option quarterbacks at the top of it, where it's Mahomes, it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Joe Burrow. And then in terms of, like, ability, it's probably Justin Herbert. And then there's a gap in the list of the quarterbacks that we talk about where you can just strap on the feed bag with them and they're going to afford you something the most won't. The rest is where it gets tricky, Dad, and it's why we look at the rest of the outstanding deals now. Like Jordan Love, I'll put off to the side. His situation so unique, sitting years behind Aaron Rodgers, coming in and having the season he did last year, and being as young as he is, that guy is going to make himself a bleep ton of money. The structure of that going to be really interesting because, again, there's not the same sample size as there were for others here. But as you look at a quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa, Dad, he's not a nuclear option quarterback. He's not someone that physically is going to be able to go out there and lift the team by himself, but you're a contender in the Miami Dolphins, and he's gone out there and shown steady improvement, especially among this current regime. So you're going to have to pay him that kind of money because what's the other option? You bet against your own team's success. You say, hey, we think we might not actually be that great with this roster that we spent a ton of money on in the receiving core. We've tried to improve in the offensive line, on and on down the list. So you're going to pay him there, and that's not really going to, I think, be a huge issue for Tua Tagovailoa going forward. I don't know if you agree or not.
I agree, but is he a quarterback that you know you're going to have to pay? The guy led the league in passing yards, 29 touchdowns, did have 14 interceptions, had a high quarterback rating as well. So he's a guy you know you have to pay, but then you list the quarterbacks, the high-paid quarterbacks, and you start to list them in order of who do I buy into the most that can do just what I said before. When you got to lay the game on their shoulders, can you do that? Do we feel that way about Tua? They put a lot of weapons around him. Obviously, with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and the backfield that they have, defense was playing better. So, but can you put the game on Tua's shoulders? That is eventually part of what you're paying for.
Well, but I think we've established with most of these quarterbacks, it's actually not what you're paying for, because there's only a handful of quarterbacks that can really go out and accomplish it. And again, I think some of the handful of names. Well, yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, that's what we all want, but I want a gold-plated toilet that warms the seat and talks to me. I am not in the class of people that can make that happen pretty regularly. So I think it's being realistic, again, about a quarterback that can get you close enough, often enough, in a window where you've constructed the rest of your roster. That's what makes the Dallas Cowboys situation so interesting is, Dad, it appears like Jerry Jones and company are basically saying, hey, we might have reached the end of the runway with this roster and we know it, and that's why we're not going to extend this any longer beyond this year. Is, to me, I think not paying your quarterback the market rate in the NFL almost seems like it's the same signal that colleges think they're sending if they don't pay their head coach over a 10-year deal, and send that message to recruits and the fan base that, hey, we've got our guy. We are a stable organization. We know where we're going. You can trust us when you come over here. In the NFL, that seems to be what paying your quarterback is. It's a signal to the fan base and the franchise, hey, we think we've got an opportunity to win here and now. We think this person, between age, ability, and or production, shows us enough to where that trajectory is on point. And then you get to the Dallas Cowboys, who are almost betting the do not pass line at the craps table, saying, yeah, we're not so sure about this season. We're not so sure about the place this roster's in. And even though Dak Prescott played MVP caliber quarterback this last season for large stretches and has been a winner for you in that franchise, we're not really sure, even though it would be financially beneficial to us in a bunch of different ways, that we want to go and extend this any longer. And I can't help but think that internally that seems like their own indictment and assessment of their roster.
I got two things. First, if Dak becomes a free agent, that is going to be unbelievable. That is going to be absolutely, because you're right. That would mean Jerry Jones is throwing up the white flag and saying it's time to rebuild around another quarterback. It would be unreal for a guy with that resume, though the resume does not include, going far in the playoffs or a Super Bowl, which you would like to see. But it includes some pretty impressive numbers. A lot of turnovers the year before, but not last year, just 9 interceptions. And number two, what do you want your toilet to say to you?
Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, why would you want your toilet to talk? Why would you want your toilet to talk to you?
Gold-plated.
I mean, it's kind of lonely in there.
What is a toilet?
So you want a conversation? I mean, what are you looking for?
Looking good
I don't know,
today?
Maybe it reads me the news. Maybe it's like, and I can't say her name right now because then it'll go off in the kitchen, but the Amazon home tool that has the name that starts with the letter A, but sometimes it can read you your email. Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to set this off for people listening too, because I know how that goes in the house, and then it gets really confusing and your significant other is asking, who is she? And it's like, I don't know, babe. I think she works for Amazon, but I think that'd just be kind of nice. And honestly, that was just, I think, me getting a little lost in the sauce right now. Really, and I don't even think I need it to be gold. I think it's just, and Pablo Torre talks about this all the time, the Japanese toilet with the heated seat. I'm going to Japan at the end of the month here in July, and I am so excited to encounter a true, authentic Japanese toilet because they sound sensational.
Yeah. I sat on a heated toilet. It's nice.
I think a heated toilet would be great, better than like a cushioned toilet. And I wonder, and I was over there one time doing a preseason game, and you're going to be there for 10 days, so you're going to see a lot of it. I wonder, when you talk about the heated seat, of how big, because you're going to be a giant over there. I'm just wondering how big those bathrooms are and the area around there is.
I do worry about the circumference of the lid itself, and I don't know how universal that standard is, because while in football standards, I did not have a backside that most offensive linemen have. I was a little bit undersized in the lower body. Relative to the human population, toting a bit of a wagon back there. So definitely worried about how that's going to go. Is there anything more unnerving? We've talked about the heated toilet lid is obviously a great luxury. Is there anything more unnerving when you go to a public restroom and you sit down and the toilet seat's warm and you realize why that is?
The worst. That's why in a second guess, I'm like actually second thinking, like, is it really nice, a warm seat? I feel like it's kind of sketchy.
Yeah,
I mean, it's nice when you know the right source.
Right. When you know, it's nice when you know it's been warmed by other, things than somebody else's butt. It's between that and no toilet paper being the worst things, obviously.
That's the worst.
Oh my God! Yeah, you haven't been in true hell until you've had to ask the bouncer at a college bar for toilet paper at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Trust me, y'all don't want that life. I have lived that life so that you don't have to. Just even in that state, exercise a little foresight, exercise a little bit of planning here, just like these teams. So, Dad, ultimately, do you think Dallas gets a deal done with Dak Prescott before the season gets started, or do you really think that we're going to get to free agency with him?
I would be stunned if they didn't. I really would. Again, I mean, where are you going? What are you doing? I know he's 30, but my God, anymore that's young. That's always my question. What are you going to do? Are you going to go into the draft? They're not going to be bad enough to pick high. So if you want one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, you'd have to give up assets to move up there to do it. So do you want to go down that road, which means you're starting over with a rookie quarterback? Or are you planning on trading for someone of which you're giving up assets? You planning on picking one up in free agency, which means if you're picking up a quarterback in free agency, that usually meant, well, the guy's a free agent for a reason, right? Because no high quality quarterbacks are ever available in free agency. So why are you going down that road? I don't understand. Dak still gives you the best chance to win. So I would be stunned. I hope enough leaves have fallen around Jerry Jones to be able to see enough of the landscape to say, let's get this thing done and taken care of. And oh, by the way, it'll help our cap number this year as well.
I'd be curious what our buddy Jason Fitz would think about 2025 Dallas or Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Dak Prescott. Like, at this point, because Dad, I think this is it takes two to tango situation. I saw some people floating yesterday. I forget if this is Bill Barnwell or somebody else. I don't want to falsely attribute or jam this down anyone's throat, but this idea that, all right, we've got now two $55 million a year quarterbacks in terms of average annual salary, and Joe Burrow and then the newly signed Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has not gone out so far and at least consistently during the regular season done as much as we've seen Dak Prescott. Now, he's considerably younger, which factors into this, but Dak also potentially getting to free agency, which is something we don't see. That's why we were all so hot and bothered when it even got close to that with Lamar Jackson and what happened with the Baltimore Ravens. But if you're Dak Prescott, $60 million a year for Dak Prescott in the open market is not far-fetched. We just don't get to see this very often. And so if you are Dak and you're tired, and being a Dallas Cowboy, we know can afford you a lot of great luxuries off the field, and being on America's team and all that stuff, I still, while it might be overblown to an extent, there is massive brand value in the things that go along with that can certainly help you out around football. If you're Dak Prescott at this point, do you get tired of playing all this game and say, hey, if I bet on myself and hit for one season and then hit true free agency, I'm going to hit a lick unlike most people have seen in my lifetime? And a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, I mean, they didn't do or address any of the quarterback stuff, didn't reach in the draft this offseason for it. And now going into next year, I don't know if any of the guys on that roster between Aiden O'Connell or between Gardner Minshew are really going to be the answer for that team. And so we're likely looking at a squad that's got their quarterback of the future somewhere off in the distance. Could very much be him, but there always seems to be teams in need. So Dak Prescott, I'm just saying from his standpoint, could look to bet on this and bet on himself this season now that we've gotten this close.
We have seen other guys bet on themselves and make out. This would be the biggest of all. If he were to bet on himself, have himself another good year, and then hit free agency, I can't even imagine the astronomical numbers because everybody else just slotted in because they weren't free agents. Dak would be a free agent. It could be just unbelievably massive.
And again, because they can't franchise tag him, he's got all those protections in his contract. It would be unprecedented, and I would understand anyone who took the security of a deal with their team instead of having to face that 1 year where any number of things could go wrong. We'll wait and see. Back after this, Gojo and Golic.
Gojo and Golic. We're talking some college football now. Big 12 in negotiations with Allstate as a naming rights partner. A new name has emerged, Allstate 12, sources tell Yahoo Sports. Big 12's plan to retain that 12 in the name. Gojo, how does this sound to you?
Silly that the 12 would be the thing that they continue to latch onto. There has been nothing sillier, Dad, in the ever-changing world of college sports than the attempt to hang on to the numbers that don't actually match up with the amount of people in the conference from these conferences. We dealt with it with a lot of people who had to go from the Pac-10 to the Pac-12 transition before that conference died. And now the idea that as college football gets fully ready to sell its soul for the almighty dollar, that these teams would be like, well, actually, we really want to hang on to the 12, even though we've got 16 teams coming up.
And that's part of the tweet I'm looking at. Big 12 plan is to retain 12 in their name. Why? I mean, if there are so many changes, why are we doing that? I mean, it's 16 now. Not to say that it has to be 16, because God knows that could change in another year. Maybe it's just trying to revamp all the names, right? Or that has a number in it, right? For even the Big 10, change it to whatever, however many teams are in there. The SEC doesn't really have a number, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's the more ridiculous thing to me, it's not selling the naming rights, because that seems about to be standard operating procedure in today's world. Grab money where you can get it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And you want to hit me with tradition and all that? Listen, that got thrown out the window a while ago. Games are still going to be played. Stadiums are still going to be filled, and people are still going to watch it no matter what it's called or no matter who's in what conference. It is not going to affect the game on the field. So, man, get more creative than the All-State 12. It's not 12. It's at least 16 right now, and probably going to grow from there. So let's get a little more creative. But the basic premise of this, Mike, I have zero problem with them selling the naming rights here and making some money.
It is just sort of, I don't know. It's humorous to me because, as we've seen with Twitter for the last couple of years, which I haven't called X nearly once, like, it's not going to work. We're all still going to call them the actual conference names until we get college football Pangea and this thing reorgs another time. And that's the other thing. Like, are you buying these naming rights now with the idea that things are going to stay status quo? Because my brother in Christ, if you watch college football for even a second in the last 5 years, the chances of that happening are slim to none. And Dad, all of this seems like clever masking, because this really doesn't matter. It's a cosmetic change like what we've seen with stadium names in recent years. I mean, hell, you and I, when I was growing up in Arizona, they had Bank One ballpark there. The Bank One paid all that money for, only for everyone to call it the Bob. They just named it Crypto.com Arena, and everyone in Los Angeles still calls it Staples, even though that's just fealty to a different brand. Like, all of it's a dumb reorg of stuff that doesn't actually matter. So if you can get some money there, great. I do love that in all of these columns, though, this has masked the real headline where it's, oh yeah, and by the way, the Big 12 might also take $1 billion of private equity money here. Like, again, that's the thing you actually need to care about here. All this naming stuff is just fluff. It's fuzz. Right. They're trial ballooning the private equity money that's the real existential threat to the sport.
Yeah, and the private equity, with that comes what comes with that? What obligations then, of the private equity firm saying, oh, we're not going to be that involved, to them basically taking over. I mean, that I'm with you. Allstate just gives you a ton of money, and you just call it Allstate whatever, the Allstate 12 here. They have no say in anything. The private equity firms, that's a different ballgame. That's, now you're talking about the power at the top. How is that power dynamic going to be? That's a different ballgame. But these, I don't care. And you're right. I was going to bring that up too. How bummed was Bank One when everybody called it Bob, and nobody knew what Bob meant. Anybody just went there, Bob. Oh, I don't just Bob. We don't know what Bob means. And Bank One's sitting there writing out another check, saying, great, we're writing out a check to have our name on there. And nobody calls it the friggin' name it's supposed to be. So I'm not, in all honesty, I'm not sure what the Allstates of the world get out of this, what their, return is and how they decide their return, because they're going to pay a ton of money for it. So more power to them. But I'm with you. It's the private equity groups that are the things that are going to be concerning.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, for Allstate and them, it's easy because, I mean, the ESPNs of the world, the broadcast partners would have to list and show the graphics with your logo on that conference logo every single time. Like, you'd get a ton of visibility on all those big shows that would be named like that. Amongst, but that's what I'm saying. That's where the bang for their buck would come from there. I would totally understand someone throwing down. I would hope in again, the spirit of the sport is getting crushed and choked out. And for all the people that have blamed the kids, again, the adults here are doing that. You're going to try and crush the spirit off of tradition with all these things. At least keep it in the insanely stupid tradition of college sports and have it be the same dumb bowl sponsors that have given us hilarious names over the years. Like the Bad Boy Mowers ACC or the Pop-Tarts Big 12 would be a lot more fun to me than just the same big brand names that put themselves all over College Game Day.
The only thing I'll go back to, Mike, and kick back a little bit on the name of, yes, I know ESPN and everybody has to put up Allstate, but what do you get? I know you get the visibility, but can you put that into X's and O's? Because why do names of bowl games change all the time? Because it ain't working for that company. So they bail out of it and it goes to another name. So they're not getting the bang for their buck, or they wouldn't be changing all the time like they are.
I'm just saying, man, like in a lot of these places, Home Depot's been a sponsor of College Game Day for a while. There have been a bunch of those brand names that have stuck around because when you get it in the right spot and it does hit, this is still live sports and this is still the engine that makes most everything go financially around all this. I will say, though, again, the big headline that people should be concerned about is the Big 12 has been in discussions with private equity firm CVC Capital Partners for a stake in the league about 15 to 20%, sources told ESPN, which would be up to $1 billion in cash. And again, between the NCAA settlements that could have a big bite out of the ass of a bunch of the member institutions and conferences going forward and money that they would have to pay as essentially back pay to players who had their earnings withheld by the structure of the sport that the court struck down. That's the big deal because, Dad, as you mentioned, 15 to 20%, it's not the majority stake. And what we've heard in the headlines they've tried to throw out there are, oh, no, we don't want to come in and change anything. We don't want to come in there and be in control of anything. Again, it's usually in the situation. Listen, I'm by no means a business expert. Someone can check me on this, but most private equity investment seems to be about streamlining the margins in the name of finding and achieving better profit. Like, you're not going to invest $1 billion into anything and not want to see a return on it. And some of the first things to go, like I've always said, as college football's reorganized and you have a bunch of the teams at the bottom of the barrel, the Big Ten of the SEC beating their chests because right now you're one of the haves, how long do you think that's really going to last before they look down and decide, hey, why am I sharing money with you in the same way? The stuff that's happening in the ACC right now, where Florida State and some of the bigger brands have been making noise, and you've had that conference talking about, hey, well, maybe we reallocate some of the TV money coming in so that the bigger brands get paid more so that they feel loved and don't break up our conference by trying to break the grant of rights and leaving. That's going to happen eventually for the Big Ten and the SEC, where the big-time teams up top and there are going to say, well, why don't we just go hang out with each other? You're not Rutgers. Right. You're not pulling your weight the same way that the rest of us are. That, to me, just gets sped up by the presence, Dad, of something like private equity, who's going to come in and look at them as market inefficiencies and things that they can do without.
Yeah, you guys are worth being around. You guys are not, without question, the hierarchy there. So I agree. But right now we're going to have Allstate 12 probably, and then look up next, we'll probably have Globe Life Conference USA. Conference USA is looking to sell the rights. Now that's too long. The names under consideration are Globe Life Conference USA or just Globe Life Conference. You got to go with just Globe Life Conference. At some point, people will get used to what it is because Globe Life Conference USA is just too long. Just too long. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Someone be creative. If you're going to start to give away your naming rights, be creative.
That's what I'd like to see, but again, I have really lost hope in anyone in college football operating with fun or the best interest of the players in mind at this point unless forced to. But again, I can take solace in the fact that most of us aren't going to comply with this, and we're just going to call it what we want. I will say the group of 5 schools, or what's traditionally been called that, them selling naming rights makes a lot more sense because they're about to have to fork over a lot of money that they weren't really at fault for in this entire settlement deal. But
agreed.
Get ready. The change ain't going to stop. The cosmetics are going to change. And for all of us who are fans of the sport and people that love it, we can try and hold on as best we can to the soul as this all continues to go and spiral. So we'll wait and see what they land on with these names. I'm still rooting for Buc-ee's to throw their hat in the ring. You just bought that $40 million Buc-ee's that we talked about yesterday. What's a few more dollars in there to take the naming rights at the conference? Coming up next, we'll talk to our buddy Andrew Siciliano about the Rams in the Olympics here on Gojo and Golic. All right, pumped to talk to our next guest here. You guys know him certainly as an NFL broadcaster, but coming up this summer, one of the hosts of the Gold Zone for the Olympics, Andrew Siciliano, joining us here now. And Andrew, you are someone that's used to digesting copious amounts of information to do this job with all of us here. How are we feeling about the Olympic challenge, buddy?
I'm glad I have some time off, boys, right now to get ready for it. How about that? Good to see you both. There are 39 sports. There's a lot to digest. I will say this, having done this with NBC and their great team for the Sochi Games in 14 and the Rio Games in 16, the NBC Olympic Research Department is second to none. And they do so much heavy lifting, not just in the weeks, the 17 days of the games, the 17 days we're on the air, but year round. And thank God that we're not killing trees and it's all digital, because I got a stack of PDFs in my email like that to get through.
I hate to say, Andrew, I would be printing it all up. I'm very old school and would have to have the hard copy in front of me. And that would be a problem here. Listen, I am an Olympic freak. I watch all the events. I love this. So I am so looking forward to the Gold Channel and this whole thing. But I got to add, 39 sports, as you said, or events that we're looking at. Have you gotten the lingo down for the breakdancing yet, which is now an Olympic event?
So, yeah, people may be surprised that breaking, okay, they're not going to call it breakdancing. It's going to be breaking is officially an Olympic sport this year. Sonny Choi, by the way, is the American you should get to know. We're rooting for Sonny Choi to get a medal. And potentially a gold medal. Basically what it's going to be like a dance battle. It's not going to be like one person goes and then the judges give that person, that dancer, that breaker a score. They're actually, look at your look. Yeah. They're actually going to be dance battles. And that is the competition. It's going to be fantastic.
So this is essentially the Step Up movie franchise going to the Olympics.
Yep. With gold medals on the line.
Okay, I officially could not be more excited for that. Is there anything else? You mentioned having done this before, the biggest challenge or the biggest difference this presents from doing this for something like the NFL?
I think the biggest thing is honestly just getting the names right into the context, right? It's hard to speak the language fluently, I think, for all 39 sports. It's why I have amazing respect for guys like Mike Tirico, Joe Buck, others who, Dave Pasch, who quote unquote speak the language fluently for so many sports. They do the NBA, they do baseball, they do football, they do the PGA, and they speak those languages fluently. Mike, obviously, our primetime host for NBC for the games coming up in Paris. And to not give away that this isn't your primary sport, that's my goal, right? To be able to speak the language, to know who the world champion is, who the Olympic champion is, who the favorite in this event is, who the best American is, who the American record holder is. That's my goal every day, if you will. That's the gold medal I'm going for, to make sure that I get everything down for every event we're going to go to. Because look, there may be some days where we only have 3 or 4 things to go back and forth in between in the window that we're on. There may be some days in the middle of the games where we may have 12 different sports to go to, say, in a 4-hour window on Peacock. So it's a lot of juggling. And again, I'm leaning a lot on that research department. We have a great team assembled, and I'm looking forward to it.
I know one of the biggest fears when I'd go in a booth, I know Mike was the same way, is the pronunciation of names, because you want to get that right for families involved. And while Katie Ledecky will be easy for you in the swimming part of this thing, easy. Are you one of those? I would have to look at it phonetically. I mean, to try and know the name. Is that probably the toughest thing for you?
It is phonetic, and the NBC Research Guide has everyone's names phonetically, including American names that may need a little bit for the Team USA names that you might need a little extra help on. I'm usually pretty good with names. Took 7 years of Spanish and could usually build off of that. But at the same time, there is a lot of sounding out and double and triple checking because you don't want to mess those up. And I'm going to apologize in advance for any names that I do mess up, or any names that maybe I get right the first time and mess up the second time. But my goal is then to get it right now the third time and circle back to the way I did it right the first time.
I absolutely trust you on that. You're a pro's pro. And when in doubt in all of this, it seems if we've learned anything from the last couple of weeks is you can just bring up the Caitlin Clark Olympic basketball team debate and fill plenty of airtime with that and distract everybody with the shiny object. I mean, have you been stunned by the lead up into that? Speaking of Olympic coverage, just what that's done to this entire ordeal?
I don't think I've been stunned because I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Anything Caitlin Clark is going to move the needle, period, full stop. Down the stretch of the season when Fox would put her games on Saturday afternoon on Big Fox, not on FS1 or FS2 or FS whatever. And the ratings you realize that we are watching a moment in history where anything she touches will get talked about, will move the needle, will get a rating, will get debated. The sequence of events where you had the Olympic team directly after the hard foul, which had already, I think, got everyone in a tizzy, and then you throw the Olympic team on top of that. I do think it is a bit of a missed opportunity here, and that having her on the team would have brought that much more interest to this team and to the games. That said, and I really do mean this, people have worked their entire lives, not just the last 3.5 years, but their entire lives to make the team. I am not in any way an expert in women's college basketball or the WNBA. If the coaches and the organizers believe that there are 12 better players than Caitlin Clark, then so be it. You would hate for someone to work that long and that hard for a goal of making Team USA a lifetime achievement just to get there and then be left off the team because they thought that somebody else would get more ratings.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's a completely different ball game, and this still the meritocracy of sports, something that should be at the forefront of this. Absolutely right. So we're looking forward to the Gold Zone coverage, no doubt about that. But Andrew, one of the other things you've also been a part of covering is the Rams in preseason in the NFL, and this to me one of the most fascinating teams coming off of last season and going into this year. And it certainly starts with their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, when healthy, completely changed the trajectory for this team. I know there's some contract stuff that he's maybe working on with the team right now in terms of guaranteed money, but so far through the offseason program and heading into camp here, do we still have more prime vintage Stafford left in the tank for this guy?
I think so, and I think they believe so as well. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the contract. He doesn't have any guaranteed money left beyond this year, and no one likes that on their contracts, especially with a quarterback, and especially the way that the numbers have exploded. I think the question is, how long does Matthew truly want to keep playing? Is this hey, I'm only going to play 2 more years, redo the contract now, then I'll walk away in a year or 2, and then maybe they're cash strapped on the back end of that deal? I'm not sure exactly what he wants. I do think they will figure something out, and I do think the most important thing is, and this is not an Aaron Rodgers shot, I promise, is that he is here. He hasn't spoken. No one has seen Matthew in front of a camera in a while, other than some in-house stuff that he did with his wife Kelly with the Rams and some other stuff that they have put on their site. So we really don't know Matthew's side of the story, but there aren't many juicy stories with this team right now. There isn't a lot of palace intrigue. They really do think that, a team that made the playoffs and obviously were one and done last year, and they were starting at the site of their playoff departure last year by going week 1 Sunday night in Detroit. They really do think that this team is built to win and built to win right now. They redid the offensive line. They got Steve Avila playing center. They brought in Jonah Jackson from the Lions. And they feel that with the 2 big pieces they added in the first and second round on defense, and with Chris Shula now calling it, Raheem Moore's big loss, they do think this is a championship caliber team. They never rebuilt, they remodeled, if you will, and they think that this could potentially really be their year.
Andrew, always great catching up, man. We're excited to watch you doing your thing in the Olympics coming up in the Gold Zone, and certainly as we march towards the fall that we all love. Thanks so much, man.
Gentlemen, it's been fun. Let's do it again soon.
All right, guys, time to finish off the show and the week the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. I'm serious. Do it. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. If you miss us there, the best of Gojo and Golic, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern, wherever you hear VSiN on the radio. And if you miss us there, God forbid, or any of our great guests here, thank you to former NBA champion and Miami Heat assistant Caron Butler, who joined us earlier in the show, Kelsey Conway, Bengals beat writer at Cincinnati Enquirer, and Andrew Siciliano, NFL broadcaster and one of the co-hosts of the Gold Zone coming up for the Summer Olympics. If you missed any of them, check them out wherever you get our podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the show. And guys, let's start off with this. We had Tom Brady's Patriots Hall of Fame ceremony this week on Wednesday. And so, of course, that meant only one thing. We had to send our buddy Emerson Latzia out for some man on the street content around Boston as they gathered to support the GOAT.
Oh, man. All right, we got to fuel up. Tom Brady is being inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. So, of course, we're starting at a New England legacy, Dunkin' Donuts. Pump this into my veins. Let's go talk to some fans, get their favorite memories. I have some hard-hitting questions. Let's go.
So you knew about the Tom Brady roast. Say something nice about Tom Brady right now. We need to bring his spirits up after the roast on Netflix.
We love you, Tom Brady, more than life itself.
Because I know he's watching. I know he's listening right now. He's a huge fan. Say something nice about Tom Brady right now.
He's the GOAT, man. The greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, man. It's a pleasure to watch that guy play every Sunday, man. It was crazy.
He's got a nice house. Let's go listen to some Bon Jovi.
That's the best news I had all day.
Banner 18 for the Celtics. Or Tom Brady comes back and plays quarterback one more year inside Gillette Stadium. Which one are you picking?
I think I'm going to have to choose Tommy.
Banner 18. I'm going to say Tom Brady.
Yeah!
Tom Brady comes back.
Oh, let's go! What was your favorite Tom Brady memory here, though, in a Patriots uniform?
I mean, we've been a season ticket holder pretty much my entire life. And it's just everything. Like, every playoff game, everything like that. Like, looking back on it, I wish I had taken more pictures and videos and all that stuff. And
oh, wow, you're getting emotional.
Yeah, dude.
Every touchdown he has thrown and winning championships.
You're making me emotional. Give me a hug. Give me a hug.
The comeback, Atlanta, Super Bowl.
We've gotten that a lot today.
I mean, he is one handsome devil. I'll tell you
Okay.
that. He sure is.
Why is everyone so obsessed with his handsome looks and getting lost in his eyes?
I get lost in those eyes.
No, it's
man.
true. It's why I always refuse to interview him. Let's get out of here.
What I want to know is, if anyone didn't see that, it's great stuff. The guy that showed up wearing the 12 Montreal Expos jersey, what was that? I want to know the story behind that at Tom Brady's coronation day.
I think it's maybe the only thing he had that had 12 on it, right? That's the only thing I can think of.
He's trying to hold on to the 12, guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
he was drafted by the Expos. There's the connection. So he's a deep cut Tom Brady fan. That's when you really know.
Wow. Okay. Didn't forgot about that one. Wow.
No, so great stuff by Emerson. By the way, speaking of deep cut fandom, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Taylor Swift, who was up at 4:00 in the morning overseas in Liverpool watching the ring ceremony for her boyfriend Travis Kelsey on the live stream from Nicole Hardman's girlfriend's phone, commenting like truly one of us. So it's been a banner week for big time celebrations and bling all around here. You guys didn't think I could weave Taylor Swift into another segment. You're both surprised.
Oh no, I never doubted that.
Never doubted that for an instant. No. We do need to talk about that ring ceremony at some point. 529 diamonds in that Super Bowl ring.
That's what Taylor's going to get.
And the designed play, the Tom and Jerry play that won the game in overtime is actually drawn up on the ring. It's incredible.
Damn, that's
I want to know whose job it is to think of all the different diamond number meanings that go into a ring and how you actually fit them on there. Is it a chicken or an egg situation, or in this case, a diamond and a thought situation? I don't know. We'll have more time for that in the other day. Claudia, let's get to that and a little U.S. Open update as we tee off for day 2 here.
Yeah, so Patrick Cantlay leading right now, 5 under after the first round. McIlroy 2 over today, 3 under overall. He is the leader now when it comes to the odds to win it all, plus 360. And Scheffler, who was the big favorite at plus 350 at 14-1 right now. So, of course, this market going to be shifting throughout the tournament. And one person I know who's keeping a close eye on this, Senior. What do you think so far?
Oh, I am. Scotty Scheffler has played, 7 today's, 1 over today's, 2 over for the tournament, which is stunning. I picked Tiger to make the cut. His 4 over yesterday. He doesn't play until 1 o'clock this afternoon. So the big time favorite is struggling a little bit. I think third on that list was Bryson DeChambeau. He's played 6 today's even and stays at 3 under, tied with McIlroy right now as Cantley and Oberg have the two guys are at the top 5 and 4 under. They don't tee off till like 125 and 136. And Phil Mickelson was +9. He struggled. Tiger struggled. So in trying to see some of these older great players, make that run that we're talking about, at this point we're not getting it. We'll see. We'll see if Tiger can get near the cut line today.
Yeah, for Tiger, obviously that's going to be part of the story. For Rory, we know we've got the decade drought without a major that he is, after a very clean round of golf, now officially in contention for, which is exciting. But I saw our buddy Trey Wingo posted the video. We saw motion from Scotty Scheffler yesterday. A little putter throw on the green. I mean, officer, arrest this man. He can't be allowed to do this.
He did the Bob, I think it was the Bob Barker putter flip or the Happy Gilmore putter flip. One of the two putter flips.
This guy sucks.
On the green. Yeah, I think it was Happy Gilmore and Bob Barker. This guy sucks. Yeah, there was a little bit of emotion there. Not playing his best right now. So, again, not too far out of it. He's 7 off the lead, and we know what kind of a run he can make. We'll see. But for Tiger Woods, who shot over par yesterday, he hasn't broken par in a round in a major since a 1 under 69 in the second round of the 2022 PGA Championship. So the hope is there, but the struggle continues to be real for Tiger.
And I do want to say, instead of having to go from tab to tab to look at the standings, DraftKings Sportsbook has the leaderboard right there. So if you're looking at the odds, you see Cantley's record. You can see McIlroy, like we said, 2 over today. So just a very helpful tool if you haven't checked that out already for the U.S. Open. We do have the standings right there at the book.
I will leave you with this in terms of Rory McIlroy and him being the betting favorite. Every time he has opened a major with a bogey-free round, he has gone on to win the tournament. He did accomplish that yesterday, so something to keep an eye on with Rory McIlroy heading into the weekend. Claudia, speaking of heading to a very interesting weekend, let's get to the third here, a little footy.
Yeah, Euro 2024 kicks off today, and I'm sure it's absolute madness right now in Germany. Scotland, Germany kick off 3 p.m. Eastern. Germany, the -360 favorite. Scotland 10-1. I'm a little biased to Scotland, so I would never bet it, but I'd love to see a close game. Apparently over 200,000 Scotland fans, though, headed to Munich. So either way, beer going around, bourbon, whatever it is. Unfortunately, probably won't be a close game, though.
No, probably not going to be a close one there. But, Dad, overall for this one, you've got, I believe, France and England co-favorites at +350. Germany not far behind at +550. But everyone kind of limping into this one. England lost to Iceland in the lead-up. France drew with Canada. Germany drew with Ukraine and lost to Greece. Portugal lost to Croatia. So everyone limping into this and what's sure going to be an absolute zoo there in Munich.
Yeah, defending champs Italy are +1,600 to repeat at this point. I wouldn't go near the pitch. That it's crazy there. I like soccer. I don't love it, so I wouldn't go there. I'd go to a pub. But even going to a bar, you see they're packed into the streets with the screens outside, so you'd have to get there. I'd have to get there early to get myself a seat and not move and be ungodly drunk because I would be there for hours drinking beer in Germany, which would be just fantastic. I wonder how it works there when there's so many seats and you got to get up and go to the bathroom. They got to be cordial about it, let you keep your seat when you're going to the bathroom. I'm not going to sit there and pee in a glass.
Bro, this is pants pissing season. What are you talking about? You're out there in that crowd. There ain't no way out. You're there drinking. You're partying it up with the boys. It's time to pee your pants and just keep it moving.
Obviously, Gojo would say that.
I just...
Gojo pees wherever he wants.
With him. He wants the talking toilet. I mean, it just the show just devolves.
It all ends in pee for Gojo.
Hey, man, Miles Davis over here, peeing your pants, always going to be cool. If this show is always cool to you, download, subscribe, rate, and review it. Leave us a 5-star rating. Thanks so much. Enjoy all the sports action this weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.